All right, folks, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for coming. My name is John Cooper. I'm the Director of Media and Public Relations at the Heritage Foundation. I want to thank you all for taking the time to be here with us today, really to talk about a major issue of American security and sovereignty, and that's the crisis on our southern border. Since day one, the Biden administration has really undone every effective policy and procedure that was in place to create the most secure border of our lifetimes, the most recent of which is the announced end of Title 42 later this spring. So we wanted to convene a group of experts who know what border security is, what it looks like, and most importantly, how to re-secure our southern border. So that's why we've convened this press conference today. Looking forward to a great set of speakers, starting off with Congressman Andy Biggs from Arizona. Congressman, we'll go ahead and throw it over to you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Andy Biggs. I'm Congressman from Arizona's 5th Congressional District. It's a pleasure to be with you and appreciate all of your attention today on a very critical issue. I'm here today because of the ongoing crisis on the southern border, and that crisis has been caused by the Biden policies. President Biden and Secretary Mayorkas have instituted policies that have created this crisis that is unprecedented in American history, and now they want to exacerbate the problem by eliminating Title 42. That's a reckless decision. It's a thoughtless decision, but no doubt, and make no mistake, it is a purposeful decision. Ending Title 42 will only fuel the current catastrophe that we have on the border right now. In just 1 year, we've had more than 2.5 million illegal aliens show up at our southern border. That is unprecedented, and now it's about to get a whole lot worse, a whole lot worse. More than half of the aliens who entered our country illegally in February were quickly removed using Title 42 authority. And the same thing for the first 2 months in March. Half were removed. Currently, immigration authorities are encountering about 8,000 people a day, and that's amid the worst crisis in this country's history. Given the Biden administration's catch and release policies, this surge will lead to an ever-increasing number of aliens being released into American communities. And I'm calling upon Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas to call and make this statement to his boss, Joe Biden, that you cannot stop Title 42. The statutory claim is communicable disease. That doesn't mean just COVID. That means other diseases that come across, and you can't let CDC give this away. And that's what I fear they're going to do. But if they're going to get rid of Title 42, they have to fully reintegrate the Remain in Mexico policy. This notion of 9 people a day, that was the number I was given yesterday, 9 people a day nationwide that they're using an MPP after they've been ordered by the courts to reinstitute MPP. That's absolutely unacceptable. So you have to reinstitute MPP. You have to reinstitute detention until individuals have had their asylum status or their status adjudicated. That has got to happen. I've introduced 4 pieces of legislation that need to get a hearing, and I call upon Secretary Mayorkas. He knows what needs to happen legislatively. I'm calling on him to let Nancy Pelosi know that she needs to hear these bills. The first one is we have a discharge petition on a resolution by my colleague out of Montana, Matt Rosendale, to reinstitute the MPP program fully. Secondly, the grants law, HR 45. What that would do is that you would hold criminal aliens until their process is adjudicated, and then before they'd be removed. Fund and complete the wall. That's HR 58. And then HR 1901, which is the most comprehensive. And what that does, it keeps families together by addressing the Flores settlement. So you can basically keep a family together for more than 20 days. Closes loopholes in the TVPRA, Trafficking Victims Protection and Reauthorization Act, so all UACs are treated equally and removed. There should be no double standard, and that's what's happening today. This administration is saying, you know what, if you come in and you have a guardian and a child, we're going to call it a family unit, you get to stay in, you come in as single, you got to go. There is no exception under the law, and there should be no exception. My bill also prevents asylum from forum shopping by requiring aliens to apply for asylum in countries they transit through on their way to the U.S., and it will discourage illegal entry into the United States. You want to stop this? It starts at the top. Joe Biden has to say you are not welcome here. You cannot enter between our ports of entry illegally. Secretary Mayorkas has got to do the same. We must end this crisis immediately. And it's my pleasure now to throw this over to my friend Mark Morgan, who's done such a great job on this issue and from the Trump administration and a career of dedicated service. And now, Mark, turn it to you.
Great, thank you. First of all, I'd like to say everything that Congressman Biggs said was absolutely correct. I'd like to foot stomp just a couple of issues with Title 42. Now, keep in mind, the past couple of years, right now, what are we being told? We still have national mandates. There are still young kids that are mandated to wear masks in school. We're now being told there's a new variant. Look, this country, we've been tested, we've been vaccinated, we've been boosted, but the reality is there are many other countries that are failing to properly address the devastating results of COVID. They do not have vaccines that are available. Testing is not readily available. I'll give you an example. In Haiti, for example, less than 1% of Haitians, citizens of Haiti are actually fully vaccinated. So keep this in mind. Right now, the Border Patrol has apprehended illegal aliens, as the congressman said, that at a rate to over 3 million in the first 14 months. Many of these, 157 different countries. And we know that they are pouring in, and we know there is a vast majority of these individuals. Some areas have said up to 20% of the illegal aliens that are coming across being released have active COVID. And right now, this is the time that they're going to end the one authority, the one policy that prevents the further introduction of COVID-19 into this country after this country has sacrificed so much the past 2 years. Let me tell you how this is going to work from a practical standpoint. Look, in 2 days, I'm going to go to the southwest border. I'm going to travel about 9 hours. I'm going to have to wear a mask for 9 straight hours, according to this administration. But right now, especially when Title 42 ends, if you're an illegal alien that has broken in and violated the sovereign laws of this country, and you walk up to a Border Patrol agent and you demand to be processed and released, and you're going to be released and you're going to be given a plane ticket anywhere in the United States that the illegal alien wants to go. Oh, but before they get to be processed, they're going to tell the family of 4 that just broke in, they're going to tell a Border Patrol agent, oh, by the way, we all have active COVID. Guess what the Border Patrol agent's going to be forced to tell the family that broke into our country and they all have active COVID? No problem. Come on in. It absolutely defies logic, common sense, and the own medical science that we've been force-fed for the past 2 years. Now, let me go into a little bit about the numbers. Congressman Biggs talked about the numbers for a little bit. Right now, their own DHS intelligence mechanisms have said that 18,000 illegal aliens are expected once Title 42 is released per month. If you do the math, that's over 250,000 illegal aliens that are going to be entering our border every 30 days. Do the math. Right now, we're looking at this fiscal year. We've already had 1 million apprehensions and 300,000 gotaways. If you extrapolate those numbers out to the remaining fiscal year, you're looking at over 3.5 million migrants that will try to illegally break into our country in a 12-month period. That is more than the entire state's population of Nevada. Let me tell you, that is not a surge. That is a crushing tidal wave of illegal immigration coming into our southwest border. And the last thing that I want to talk about is the impact that it's having on the agents themselves. And I'd like to take just a minute to read something. What we're hearing agents say more and more, they're using the term broken arrow. What does that mean? That means substantively that the border has been overrun. The border has been compromised. The border has been handed over to the cartels. It also means that the broken arrow mentally, the agents, they're done. Their morale is the lowest it's ever been. I want to read you something that came from a recently retired Border Patrol agent. One of my former senior troops met me for coffee the other day. He said, "Boss, I was putting on my uniform, getting ready for the shift, as I always do. He had it like he had 1,000 times before. He said he stood in front of his mirror at home, making sure his uniform was squared away in every detail, just like every Border Patrol agent. He said it hit him at this very moment. He said, I thought to myself, I now belong to the biggest smuggling organization in the world. He has almost 25 years in the Border Patrol, and I could see it in his eyes. His spirit was crushed. He was broken. He hated that he was forced to abandon the oath that he swore to uphold. He no longer was proud of his service to his country. The senior agent that just retired said, "I am utterly heartbroken to see what has become of the agency that I devoted 36 years of my life to in service of this country. The job, a mission I believed in. The men and women of United States Border Patrol were so proud. We used to say we bleed green, the color of their uniform. You walk into any Border Patrol station today and the conversation is how many days until they are eligible to retire. God help us." That came from a Border Patrol agent that spent over 36 years of his life in service to this country. That's how they feel right now. And the last thing I'll say, this is not about illegal immigration. That's a false narrative that this administration, open border advocates, want you to believe. This is about border security. Illegal immigration is just a mere single subset of the vast threats that we face that's impacting our southwest border. But when you open your borders up to one threat, you open your borders up to all the vast complex threats that we face. When you have 3.5 million migrants illegally breaking into our country, limited Border Patrol resources are pulled off the front lines. They're pulled off their national security mission. That leaves the border wide open, unmonitored, unpatrolled. And what happens? The cartels exploit that, and they take advantage of that by design. And what happens? Drugs are pouring into this country at exponential rate. And we had more Americans killed by drug overdoses at a 12-month period, over 100,000 in our history. That's more deaths than all the terrorist attacks, the Afghan, Vietnam, and Iraq wars combined in a 12-month period. The leading cause of young adults in this country is fentanyl from 18 to 45. And where does the vast majority of fentanyl come? From our open southwest border. Gang members are coming in. Criminal aliens are coming in, jeopardizing every aspect of our country's safety, health, and national security. It's time to reverse action, do 180 degrees for what this administration is doing. And come this fall, I hope America wakes up and they put people in that building right behind me that's actually going to do the right thing and secure our borders and put America first. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce another patriot and someone that I consider a good friend of mine, the former acting director of ICE, Tom Homan.
Good afternoon. So I'm in a different place than the other folks speaking here today. Why? Because I've been enforced immigration law my whole life. I mean, I put on a Border Patrol uniform in 1984. And I became a special agent investigating trafficking organizations, smuggling organizations for the next 2 decades. I was the first ICE director that actually came up through the ranks. So I've worked for 6 presidents, starting with Ronald Reagan. And I respected every president I ever worked for, even though I didn't agree with them on immigration enforcement policies. But every president I worked for, starting with Ronald Reagan, to include Bill Clinton, to include Barack Obama, believed in border security. Every one of them campaigned on securing our border. Every one of them. And every one of them took some sort of action to secure our border. Remember, under Barack Obama, in 2012, we removed 409,000 illegal aliens, the most in the history of the agency of ICE. So they all believe in border security. They all believe in securing our border. But now we have the president, and President Biden, the first president in the history of this nation, who came into office and purposely unsecured the border. Now, people can say what they want about President Trump. I don't really care what people's opinion of the man is. But no one can deny, based on the data, that he gave us the most secure border this country's ever seen. Illegal immigration down to 83%. 35, 40-year low in illegal immigration, depending on what month you look at. For those people that say President Trump's policy inhumane, I'll argue with you. Because on the first year under Biden administration, more migrants have died on U.S. soil than any time in my recent memory. Over 100,000 fentanyl overdose deaths, and the DEA's on record, 95% comes across the border. Hundreds of migrants have died in Mexico. Hundreds in Panama, the Darien Gap. 31% of women get sexually assaulted making the journey. Children are dying, either in the desert or crossing that river. Tell me how these policies are more humane. More people are dying because of these policies. These are not humane policies. A secure border saves lives. When illegal immigration is down 83%, how many women didn't get raped? How many children didn't drown? How many Americans didn't die of overdose deaths? How many pounds of fentanyl didn't come across the border? How many women and children weren't trafficked for sex trade? How many billions of dollars did the cartels not make? The same cartels who were murdered ICE agents and Border Patrol agents. And at the same time, they opened the border up to mass migration. They dismantled the interior enforcement operation. I said 2 years ago, when there was talk about abolish ICE, they'll never abolish ICE, but they'll abolish their mission. So at the same year, you had historic illegal immigration. Historic. We've never seen these numbers in the history of this nation. ICE had the lowest number of removals in the history of the agency. 1.7 crossing, 59,000 removals. And if you look at the 59,000 removals, over half of them were done during the last 4 months of the Trump administration. ICE has been dismantled. Their policies have been dismantled. And the secretary still gets on stage and say, we're having a difficult time because the last administration dismantled the immigration system. That's a lie, stone cold lie. The only ones dismantling anything is this administration through 70 executive orders. They dismantled everything that we did the last 4 years to give us the most secure border in my lifetime, which saved a lot of lives. Secure borders save lives. Now, before I pass it on to Lori, I just want to go over real quick. So let me tell you how ICE has been attacked. At the same year, historic immigration, Secretary Marcus gets on stage and says, I'm going to reprioritize what ICE does. We're going to concentrate on the criminals. We're putting our resources on criminals. The limited resources that we have. The same resources that removed 409,000 people, now remove 59,000. Arrests of criminals, down 48%. Number of criminals, I'm talking convicted criminals, deported, down 63%. Number of retainers placed on criminals, down 46%. They failed. If they're concentrating on criminals, they're failing. Number of homicides, aliens arrested for homicides, down. Number of aliens arrested for sex assaults, down. The number arrested for robberies, down. The number for kidnappings, down. The number for drug offenses, down. The number of weapons offenses, down. This country is less safe under this administration, not by accident, not by mismanagement, but on purpose. Now, and one more note, off subject, but important one. The taxpayers of this country needs to demand that this administration releases the investigation into Horse Patrol. I ran internal affairs for several years. I know how long it takes to do internal affairs investigation, especially when it's on videotape. The President of the United States said they whipped people. The Secretary attacked these men. The Vice President attacked these men. Members of Congress attacked these men. A Border Patrol agent had to go home that night with his family while the President of the United States vilified him and slandered him to the whole country. I've seen those videos. Those officers did nothing wrong. Where's the investigation? And when they release that investigation, which I'm sure they're not going to because it's going to embarrass the White House for saying the things they said, they need to release the investigation at the White House briefing room, the same place they slander these agents, these American heroes that put their lives on the line for this country every day. Border Patrol's motto is honor first. Give these men back their honor, for God's sakes.
Good afternoon. Many politicians have labeled our immigration system as broken over the years. But in fact, the Biden administration is still falsely blaming its historic border crisis on the previous administration. But Americans see and understand that the Biden administration has completely blown open our border. On top of that, this administration entices and encourages all those illegally crossing the southern border to seek asylum to stay here permanently. The left treats our border and immigration as just another system to dismantle and rebuild in their own radical vision, just as they've done with the family, education, the criminal justice system, and more. The Heritage Foundation has forewarned what the Biden administration would do and has been sounding the alarm ever since it came into office. To do even more, Heritage is standing up a new Center for Border Security and Immigration to provide Congress and states with policy solutions to end this ever-growing, catastrophic border crisis and get our country to a lawful and orderly immigration system that Americans, including lawful immigrants, want and deserve. This new center will be staffed by our two great visiting fellows who you've just heard from, Mark Morgan and Tom Homan, as well as Joe Edlow, the forming acting director of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. We'll also have on staff Simon Hankinson, a dedicated State Department Consular Affairs leader, Aaron Dwinell, most recently from USCIS, myself, and Dustin Carmack, an expert on cybersecurity and intelligence. The coming termination of Title 42 has suddenly alarmed some members of Congress, but Congress has the power of the purse. It can stop funding parts of DHS until the agency resumes implementing proven border security measures like the border wall, fully resuming the Remain in Mexico program, and enforcing the immigration laws on the books. If members of Congress are serious about border security, they should close the 3 glaring loopholes long pointed out to them. End the Flores 20-day detention limit for families and unaccompanied minors. Stop treating foreign nationals from non-contiguous countries differently than contiguous countries. And raise the credible fear standard to align with the asylum standard. And because the Biden administration has abdicated its constitutional duty to secure our border and uphold immigration laws, states need to do more, and they can. States have to pay public education, healthcare, detention, and welfare benefits of their residents. States can do quite a bit to discourage illegal immigrants from residing within their boundaries. Arizona was a leader on this front during the Obama administration, and several parts of Arizona's law were held up by the U.S. Supreme Court. States can require E-Verify to prevent unauthorized aliens from working. They can verify the immigration status for eligibility to receive welfare benefits, business licenses, and vehicle benefits. They can prevent and punish the transportation or harboring of illegal aliens and prevent organizations involved in transporting or harboring illegal aliens from receiving state licenses, contracts, and grants. They can ensure that only U.S. citizens are voting, and more. Heritage will not only continue to communicate every day how this administration has erased our borders and is undermining American sovereignty, but will work to persuade members of Congress and states to implement and enforce policies that prevent illegal immigration, not process and parole hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens into the country and then make Americans pay for it. The American people are tired of an immigration system that puts them last. Heritage and leaders like Representative Biggs are going to lead the fight in Washington and across the country on their behalf. Thank you, and we can take a few questions.
And so now at this time, if there are any questions from members of the press, we'll be happy to take those. If you could just announce your outlet and your name when asking your question. And barring any questions, we'll... Oh, yes. Got one.
Doug Blair with the Daily Signal. This is a question for Mark Morgan. You mentioned that there are some Border Patrol agents who don't feel as if they're doing the job they were signed up to do, that they feel like they're the biggest smuggling ring in the world now. Have we heard any stories from people who are dealing with this on the ground, people who are like ranchers or farmers who are dealing with illegal immigrants coming into their homes and their land?
Yeah, so that's a great question. That's one of several unheard voices, but it's by design. You never hear anything from the administration about the ranchers, for example. I know Congressman Biggs has, and Tom has. We've been down on the border. We've actually heard them. I'll tell you one quick story. I heard from a young man who talked about his ranch, his land on the border had been handed down from generation to generation. He was a young guy, young family, had a wife and a young kid, and he actually told a story. I actually started to get choked up when I heard this, is that he says that his land is being overrun to such a massive amount that he does not feel safe to leave his own property in the United States, he does not feel safe to leave his wife and kid home alone. That's where we're at right now. Other ranchers tell, a lot of people don't think about this, they have livestock. A part of their business is that they have game on their land. All of that is being jeopardized by illegal immigrants that are coming across. They're trashing the pace, they're spooking the cattle, they're leaving gates open. That may not seem a lot to us standing in D.C., but to those ranchers, that's their livelihood. It's directly taking money out of their pocketbook and making them feel unsafe in their own homes.
Thank you.
This question is for Mr. Homan. You guys have talked a lot about policy changes for enforcing the front lines of the border and maybe some of the root causes in Central America and other countries. But what would you propose as solutions to enforcement and removals in the interior?
I said they get back to enforcing the laws and upholding the oath they took, right? Now, one thing that's not talked about is my workers came in and said, we're going to further narrow what ICE does. And ICE already, if you look at the data, 90%, 91% to be exact, of everybody they arrested was a criminal. That's 9 out of 10. That's good prioritization. And what's the other 9%? The other 9% are what we call collateral arrest. If they go to a house to arrest that criminal who's the target of the arrest, and they find several others here illegally, they're not going to turn around and walk away from them. They took an oath to enforce the laws of this country. So what we need to do as a nation is let these law enforcement officers and Border Patrol do their job, secure this nation. We need to let ICE officers go back to arresting 9 out of 10 criminals. I just read off a bunch of stats. They're arrested, even though everybody's going to concentrate on criminals, they arrested less criminals. They deported less criminals. They put detainers on less criminals. This administration has been a massive failure, not only on border security, but in the interior enforcement. It's a shame. With these men and women, the morale's in the toilet. You just heard Mark tell a story about one Border Patrol agent. I've talked to hundreds of Border Patrol agents. Their morale's in, and these are men who the president, under his first speech when he was president, said the last administration let children starve to death, die of starvation on the banks of the Rio Grande. He's talking about Border Patrol agents who had over 12,000 saves last year. They saved over 12,000 lives. Pulling people out of the river, finding people in the desert. We've all seen the stories of toddlers being abandoned on the border. These men and women are heroes. And people talk about, I've been down the border like Mark has 7, 8 times. The only humanity on that border are the men and women wearing green. They bring toys from their own children to these facilities so these children have something to play with. Their mothers, fathers, sons and daughters too. They don't hang their heart on a hook when they put that badge on. They're seeing some terrible things. And they're talking to young women that have been raped numerous times. They're finding dead bodies across the border. One sheriff alone in his county found over 120 dead migrants in his county. That's one county. This administration is lawless. They're not only ignoring the laws enacted by Congress, they're actively violating it. And I'm not just saying that. We've had several federal judges who have found against this administration saying exactly that. The ICE priorities, this judge said, the federal judge, has instructed ICE to violate the law. And that's why there's a stay put on it. Me and Mark Morgan have worked with the state of Texas, the state of Arizona, the state of Florida, and I'll keep filing affidavits. I never thought after serving 6 presidents I'd have to retire and actually sue one. But we're 4-0, and we're going to keep the heat on until he decides to do his job, uphold his oath to protect this nation.
Tom, if I can real quick about Secretary Myrick, because I want to foot stomp on a couple of things. We stood by, the whole nation saw what happened in Del Rio, where thousands and thousands of Haitian migrants illegally enter our border and set up a third world country in the United States. They're actually going back and forth to Mexico to get food and drinks and bring it back illegal to the United States. And while that was happening, literally while our southwest border was being invaded and 224 miles of border were going unsecured and unmonitored because Border Patrol had to provide humanitarian assistance, our secretary stood in front of the cameras and lied to the American people and said our borders were secure. It's a lie. And as he continues his lie with respect to the law, as Tom said, this secretary has actually said that being in the country illegal is not enough to be deported. This secretary's also said that having a final court order removal by an immigration judge for your removal that says you are in the country illegally is not by itself enough to remove you. He is not only disobeying the law, he's circumventing Congress, and he's making up his own law. And that's why I'm again proud to stand here next to Congressman Biggs, who he's leading the charge right now on articles of impeachment for Mayorkas. And I hope in 2023, when the Republicans take back the House, one of the first orders of business is they begin a hearing to impeach Secretary Mayorkas. He's not following the law, he's lying to the American people, and American lives are being jeopardized every single day because of this secretary.
Let me ask you all to do something. Do a favor for me. You're journalists. Look at the Homeland Security Life Cycle Report. A report that's put out by Homeland Security. Look at what that says. Almost 90% of Central Americans who claim asylum at the border never get relief from U.S. courts because they either don't qualify or don't show up in court. What's in Homeland Security Life Cycle Report say? Out of all the families order removed, less than 6% leave. All the UACs that order removed, less than 3% leave. Single adults, about 20%. What's also say, if you're in detention, you get an order from a judge to leave the country, 99% of the time you're deported. Why do you think this administration is shutting down detention and releasing people? They see the same data I see. All these millions coming in, they're not going anywhere. They'll get order removal, the vast majority of them, but ICE can't arrest them because they're just in the country illegally. The life cycle report spells it out. DHS own information, look at it, and you'll find out this isn't mismanagement, this isn't incompetence, this is by design. It's your playbook.
Any other questions?
Yes. My name is Emily Sasha. I'm from Concrete News, Arizona PBS, and this is a question for Representative Biggs. When the Biden administration announced Title 42's end, a lot of Arizona representatives and even our senators, Senators Mark Kelly and Kirsten Sinema, said that this was the wrong decision by the Biden administration. I know that you have legislation, border security legislation. Do you have a hard time selling this to fellow lawmakers in Congress?
Thanks for that question. The only people that I have a hard time selling border security legislation to, by the way, I've got 4 of them, as I mentioned earlier, but one that deals with everything from TVPRA to the solving the Flores settlement. The only folks I have a hard time selling that to are the House Democrats. They don't want to do this. They are locked into this open borders situation. I want to just stand up with my friends Mark and Tom here, and Lori from Heritage, and just tell you. I want to tell you one anecdote recently from Pinal County. You know this county in Arizona. I was there, and we talked to the sheriff, and here's what happens. He says our deputies rescued a female illegal migrant just a couple weeks before I was down there last. He said, we found on her person a bag full of pills. We said, what are those pills for? Because they were concerned maybe it's fentanyl, maybe some drugs or something they needed to know. She said, this are morning after pills. A baggie full of morning after pills because I knew I would be raped repeatedly by the cartels that I had paid money to smuggle me across the border. That's what we've become. We have got to secure the border. It is inhumane. Both Mark and Tom talked about it. It is inhumane to have a border that is open like this, because you see people smuggling in drugs. They're killed. They don't pay the money to the cartels. The average right now is $4,000 to $6,000. They don't have it. They come in smuggling the drugs or humans. They owe the cartels that money. You know how they pay it off? In criminal behavior or enslavement. This administration has to be held accountable for their inhumanity by leaving a border open. But we didn't even talk about terrorists today, the terrorist threat, when you have hundreds of thousands of people entering your border and you don't know where they come from, where they're going, or what's in their heart or in their intentions. I'm just telling you, I'm with these guys and Heritage. It really is true. This has got to be solved, and that's why Senators Kelly and Sinema from Arizona, who are Democrats, they said, don't eliminate Title 42. As I mentioned, in the first 2 weeks of March, We sent back half of the people who were apprehended under Title 42. That will not happen once May 23rd gets here, and we're going to be overrun. Thank you.